Hey, we are so happy that you can join us today. Today, we have some fantastic panelists who are going to be talking about some research on better video chatting with the grandkids. And of course, this is part of our Nanny and Grammy, the Joys and Blessings of Grandparenting series. So we're very excited about that. So something I'd like to ask you just first, while you're joining us, tell us in the chat if you're a grandparent. If so, let us know, and where you're from, what state or city that you're from, and how old are your grandkids. We would really appreciate that if you could put that in the chat. So again, put the age of your grandkids, if you're a grandparent, and what state you're from or city. So thank you so much for doing that. So I would like to introduce myself. I'm Suzanne, better known as Grammy, and my co-host is Nanny. Hey, Nanny.
Hi.
And she's also known as Beverly, and we're the grandparents of 10 grandchildren between us. Woohoo! So a grandparent is a little bit parent, a little bit teacher, and a little bit best friend. And we as grandparents love our grandchildren to the moon and back, sometimes even more than we love our own children. There's nothing that we wouldn't do to see our grandchildren happy. Our love is strong, pure, and unconditional, and we could only compare it to a mother's love. Grandparents are the best kind of grown-ups. Beverly, I know you have something to share.
Yes, Suzanne, I'm so glad to be a part of this program. Today we're going to have a very rich discussion, and we know that there's no substitute from a hug from a grandparent, from our grandkids. But sometimes distance and pandemics makes getting those hugs harder than we'd like. To stay connected to their grandkids, grandparents have turned to video chat, but it can be difficult to wrangle kids in conversations and deal with the video chat technology. We have the pleasure of being joined today by Dr. Rachel Barr and Dr. Lauren Myers for a look at new research on the benefits of video chatting between grandparents and their young grandkids. Dr. Barr and Myers both study early childhood learning and memory and the impact of technology and media on learning. Along with some quick research highlights, Dr. Barr and Dr. Myers will share tips on how to have more engaging video chats with your grandkids, including activities that are appropriate for different ages, fun game ideas, and how to engage parents in the calls alongside the children. It's going to be a culmination of some of the conversation that Suzanne and I have just had using our expertise in being grandparents, but Dr. Barr and Dr. Myers are going to add some substance to those discussions and some real research and statistics to support some of the discussions that we've had previously. Suzanne is going to give us a brief bio, and Suzanne, take it away.
Well, thanks, Beverly. I really appreciate that. I just have to say that, we are so fortunate to be grandparents, and I have four, and I have one that's one, two that are three, and one that's eight. And I know Beverly has six, and
she'll share. Six. Yeah.
Tell us about that, Beverly.
I have six. I have six, and they have 15. I have six grandkids. They range from 15 down to the age of 4. And so some of these discussions that we're going to have with our experts really are part of my life. I just try to stay relevant to my older teenage grandchildren at 15 and 16. And I also try to understand TikTok with the younger ones that are 12 and under. And so I really try to be a cool, relevant grandma and stay in tune with the technology. And so I'm really curious to hear about maybe some things that I'm missing out on, or some new ideas from our expert panel.
That's fantastic. And I know that Beverly and I both have used FaceTime, and we've done some things with Zoom and Instagram and things along this line. I mean, it was surprising when my 8-year-old set up an Instagram account for me. I was like, what? What is this about? How did you do that? So anyway, this is what we're going to talk about today, is about video chats and the role of how that helps grandparents bond with their young grandchildren. And we have these two fabulous experts who are part of a team. And this team who worked on research about video chatting with grandkids. And some of those researchers are from the University of South Dakota, Pennsylvania State University, and Brandywine, Vanderbilt University, and the Lego Foundation. But today our two guests are from Georgetown and Lafayette College. So we're just very excited about having both of these fantastic researchers. So let's hear about them a little bit. So our first one is Dr. Rachel Barr, and she is a New Zealand native, one of my favorite countries in the whole world. She's also a professor in the Department of Psychology, Georgetown University, and the director of the Georgetown Early Learning Project. She is primarily interested in how children bridge the gap between what they learn from media and how they apply that information in the real world. She is particularly interested in how parents and other caregivers help children to navigate the digital world. She has published frequently on this topic. She has worked with 0 to 3 to develop screen sense tools for parents and caregivers. And you know, Rachel, I think I might have used a couple of those already with my 3-year-olds. Thank you for doing that. And then also we have Dr. Lauren Myers, North Carolina native, whoop, whoop, is the Associate Professor of Psychology at Lafayette College, where she is serving as the inaugural Faculty Fellow for Engaged Scholarship at the Lafayette Landis Center for Community Engagement. She directs the Lafayette Kids Lab, where she and her undergraduate research assistants conduct research on children's understanding and use of symbolic representations and interactive media, such as video chat, which we'll talk about today. Her ongoing research examines how families and young children can use digital media in appropriate ways. So we're very excited about this, and we really encourage you to put your questions in the chat box today. And we also want to have you answer this question. Have you used video chat to connect with your grandchildren?
Hey, Suzanne?
Yes.
Don't forget, we want them to give us a shout out about where they're from and if they have grandkids.
Absolutely. So, yeah. Thank you for reminding that.
Yeah, we want to hear from you guys.
Yes, we asked that earlier. Please put that in. We want to know what's going on. Who's out there? Who's our audience? So please put that in the chat. And then we also want you to consider, what questions do you have about using video chat to connect with your grandchildren? So we have the experts here. They can answer that. So let's take advantage of that expertise while we can. So let's go ahead and get started. So Rachel, hey, how are you today? It's so good to have you.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So here we have a question for you. Why did pandemic-driven separations drive so many grandparents to video chat?
Yeah, well, for everybody who is a grandparent, you know that wanting to see that grandbaby is just such an important part of your life. And so nothing really will stop grandparents, I think, is probably the simple answer. So video chat has actually been around since 2003. I know because, as you said, I'm from New Zealand, and when my baby was first born in 2004, we video chatted with very old technology at that time, so that my family could meet my baby. And so families who've been at a distance, who've lived far away, families who are in the military, incarcerated, etc., have been using video chat for a long period of time. But the pandemic really spurred on many people, many grandparents in particular, to get connected with their grandchildren via video chat. And many of them, we will see later, and we'll talk later about how incredible these grandparents were at digital play and engaging with their grandkids.
Wow. Gosh, 2003, it's been around. I don't think I got caught up until, 5 years ago?
Yeah, no.
So wow, that's amazing. Okay, so let me ask you this other question, Rachel. What are some ways and examples grandparents can engage their younger grandchildren on video chat?
So we have been lucky enough to be viewing lots of video. We have video recordings between grandparents and their grandbabies. And what we've seen grandparents do is really share their worlds with their grandbabies. So they show them the dog. Animals are very important to the baby. They really want to see if the dog is still in grandparents' house. or the baby shares the world with a grandparent. So, for example, the garbage truck, if you're two going outside your house, it's a very important thing to show your grandparent that the garbage truck is there. So they share each other's world. They also do a great job of playing with one another. So they might have books on hand where they read to each other, and the same books on either side of the screen. They might have puppets and they play little puppet games with one another. So one toy pops up on one side of the screen and another one pops up on the other side of the screen. They also share food. So they have snacks together, they have meals together, and they share it with each other over the screen. They copy each other. They sing. So there's many, many, many different activities. They have really nice greetings at the beginning and nice farewells at the end. And we've compiled that into a short video just to give some examples of how grandparents have navigated this digital world.
So Rachel,
Oh, that's a big yawn. Are you going to reach for Nana?
Hope you can go.
Do you want to see your puppy? You want to see Sophie?
Hi, Sophie.
There's Sophie.
See Theo? You remember Theo?
Hi, Sophie B.
Hey, go, go, go. Go, go, go.
Yay!
So fun. All right, Lo.
So I hope mine's just as delicious. Yeah, I'm still peeling mine.
A bird. Do you want to touch it? Bird. Bird. And look what else we found.
On the other foot.
Yeah, this other foot, not this one.
The other one.
No, it's Elizabeth. No, it is Elizabeth. No. What you doing? Show her what you're working on. Come on. Come on. And look what I can do. Whoa! My top.
This is Theo. Hello, Theo. Oh, and you've got your little rainbow llama. It's llama friend. Yeah.
Wiggle, wiggle, dance, dance. Dance, dance. Dance, 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 dance,
Let's say bye to Jerry. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I love you.
Love.
oh man, I have to tell you, when I read a little bit about your research, and we do have a tip sheet we're going to be sharing in chat that everybody can download on this, is that one of the big things that I do is the type thing, the kissing, and that was the number one. I said, oh, I'm among many. And then you get the response from your grandkid, and they're going back to you, and you're like, oh gosh, this is the best, right?
Isn't it beautiful, you guys? Isn't it beautiful that our natural interaction, to blow kisses, and the feeling of that even transcends the video chat world? That's just wonderful. That's just human connection.
And babies even sometimes go and hug the screen as well. They really want to share that affection with their grandparents. Yeah.
Oh, it's fabulous.
Beautiful. Thank you.
So what a great video. Thank you so much. It just kind of set the stage. And so with that, Rachel, what advice would you give to new parents and grandparents when it comes to using video chat with young grandkids?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things that we have learned over the course of the pandemic. And one, there's sort of pros and cons, right? So if you go visit, you can spend a lot of time. But if you want a video chat, you can also leave the video chat open for a little while so that you can pop in and talk to one another for a period of time. Some families have done that. Other families have found like really short bursts is great because you can do like 5 minutes every day and check in and have a routine every day. Frequent is pretty good to, especially as children are younger, the more frequent, the better. And then just figuring out, you saw from those grandparents, figuring out the things that the babies found exciting, right? So the things that they were doing in the world and the things that were in the grandparents' world that they could share with one another. But it can be as simple as like scheduling a time when everybody's having a snack or having a book on hand and reading a storybook. These things are very effective and are really not a lot of preparation. And sometimes you can have little puppets, little toys. Having all of those things on hand before the video chat can also help, because then one day a child might love one thing, another day they might like another. And just for older kids, what we've seen people do is sometimes they like to draw together. So you can both have a piece of paper on either side of the screen. Other grandparents come up with really invented scavenger hunts. So go and find me a ball, and the baby comes back and brings the ball. So there's lots of sort of creative ways that you can adapt the screen in order to play. And these are the things that grandparents are really good at already. So think of all of the things that you love to do, and then thinking about different ways that you can do them on the screen.
Wow, that's such great advice. Nanny, what do you think?
I think I'm hopeful. I hope our audience members, heard some new ideas about how to interact with their grandkids, and I hope they can take a minute and put in the chat some things that maybe they've tried, and they can share that with us. So I want to. It's really great ideas, and I want to switch over to Dr. Lauren Myers to have a couple of have a discussion with her and ask her a few questions as well. And Dr. Myers, Lauren, what are some development issues grandparents should remember when it comes to video chatting with younger kids?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm going to pick up on what Dr. Barr said in emphasizing the importance of digital play. If you think about when you're interacting with your grandchildren in person, you don't just sit down and have a conversation with them. Especially if they're a really young child, you play with them. And so the biggest piece of advice I think Dr. Barr and I share is to find ways to play digitally and play virtually. What do you do in person, and how can you adapt that to the virtual environment? And in terms of developmental issues, one thing I think is interesting to think about and important that we might not think about otherwise is that children aren't many adults. Children have a different understanding of the world than we do as adults. And so there are some things that we take for granted as adults when we're using this technology that we could stop and think to try to help kids understand. So one example is technological issues. We've all had the experience of a connection going out, internet acting weird, or microphones not working or something like that. And we understand as adults, we understand, the Wi-Fi spotty, there's a storm, or, I need to switch my microphone, or the microphone is covered up or whatever. We understand that, and we kind of automatically adjust because we understand it. But we can really help kids out if we provide some context and some explanation and some help. And we've even seen parents turn those technological issues into play opportunities. So like, where'd grandma go? Oh, she's playing peekaboo. Where's she going to be? Oh, there she is. She's back again. or if the microphone's going out, like, oh, let's play Simon Says, like we can't hear her, but we can, point to our head, or we can clap or whatever. So children need our help to understand the technology. Another thing that children don't always understand that we take for granted as adults is the fact that the things that are on the screen are things that exist out there in the real world in person. We take for granted that, I can Zoom with you and I can talk to you on the screen, and then if I met you in person, you're the very same person. Actually turns out to be really complex for children to understand. And we've heard stories of children talking to their parents about a computer grandma, right, or iPad grandma and real grandma. And so adults can really help children understand these things by prompting them to remember when we're video chatting with grandma, prompting them to remember, oh, do you remember when we went to the beach with Nona and Granddaddy? And kind of bringing that memory to the forefront. And then vice versa. When we meet in person, remind children of the previous things that they've done with grandma on Zoom. Some families we've seen created little traditions or habits around the interactions, so like they always read the same book or they always read the same song together. And so if we can do those things when we see each other in person and on video chat, then it can help children make that link.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, your remarks just prompted me to remember to ask you about the 3 C's. The 3 C's with while video chatting with your grandchildren.
Sure. Yeah. The 3 C's, this is one of those nice, handy mnemonics to help you remember. It's child, content, and context. So if we start with child, if you think about the role of the child in a video chat interaction, you can think about basically everything having to do with them as a person. What age are they? What developmental stage are they? If they've just learned to walk, walking might be, all they want to do. And so it might mean that when we're video chatting with them, it's going to be better if it's on a mobile device so we can follow the kid around because they're just really into walking. What are the children's current interests, for instance? Are they really intensely into trains? Are they really intensely into Legos? Like whatever they're interested in, is there a way we can leverage that in the interaction? What's their attention span and activity level? I know we all appreciate as parents and grandparents, there are some times that kids might be more amenable to video chatting than others. And there might be some times where they're just not in the mood for it, and sometimes where we found, oh, this is a good time to try this. As a personal example, just the past couple of days, I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. And a couple of days ago, my 3-year-old, we were Zooming with her grandparents, my in-laws. And for whatever reason, the 3-year-old just didn't want to do it then. And so we sent pictures and videos instead. And maybe we'll talk on the phone instead. And so she just wasn't in the mood for it. And it was going to be unpleasant for everyone if we tried to make it happen, but we'll give her space instead, and we'll try it again another time when she's in the mindset to do it.
Yeah, so basically you were saying with the 3 C's, and you're going to continue to give us the last C, but I'm understanding that it could be organic, or sometimes we have to put some thought into our interactions via video chat.
Right.
It all depends on the situation.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And the content is the second C. So think about how you can engage the child in meaningful and active ways. So for instance, you could consider mailing a package with toys or books that the child can open on the video call with you. And that way you can play together. You send the kid blocks that you also have a copy of, and you can build with blocks together. We had Nona and Granddaddy story times in my family. Nona and Granddaddy are out there watching. Hello, it's my family on the other end. And we had Nona and Granddaddy story time, and they would go to the library and pick books that my children liked, and they would have story time in the afternoons. And at that time, my 4-year-old loved her Nona and Granddaddy story time because they were reading books that she was interested in. And then the last C is context. We know that especially young children do better interacting and engaging if they're with someone, if that adult can be there to support and translate if needed. Children don't necessarily recognize that the camera can only see one part of their world, and so they might be really interested in something and they point off camera, and if an adult is with them and can help them and support that interaction, the adult can say, oh yeah, I see you're pointing to your train over there, let's go bring that, and then can engage in that way. So child, content, and context.
Great. And very helpful information, 3 C's. We can remember that to make our interactions much more rewarding and richer via video chat. Dr. Myers, are there any resources or programs for grandparents and grandkids? I think we're going to have some links in the in our chat, and can you kind of review some of those for us?
Sure. So one of them is the AARP research resources that we've put together with the AARP folks. And that has some really nice strategies for engaging children over video chat, basically just summarizes the things that we've talked about. Dr. Barr and colleagues also have co-authored a wonderful resource for children and families ages 0 to 3 years from the organization 0 to 3. It's called 0 to 3 Screen Sense. And then also I would recommend the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends putting together a family media plan. If you go to healthychildren.org, they talk about how if you can use media in a way that's consistent with your family goals and your family values, it can make everyone feel better about the times when we're using media versus not, if we're using it thoughtfully and appropriately, and in the context of a plan that we have thought out and discussed as a family.
Mm-hmm. Wow, thank you so much. Such a wealth of information from both of you. We really appreciate you and your expertise and your time today. Grammy, you're on mute.
I don't know, I got so excited I had to put myself on mute.
Yeah,
I thought I might chime in and go, hey, I got a question. Hey,
like the Dr. Myers was suggested I was going to play Simon Says, or
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say this is just rich information, as Beverly has and Nanny has stated. But something that Nanny and I have been doing in our other previous programs is we also would make the recommendation to look at special moments of history, either in your family or things that are going on. And something's coming up. I mean, does everybody know it's Grandparents' Day on Sunday, September 12th? It was proclaimed back in 1978. Can you believe 43 years ago that President Carter put this in as a national holiday for grandparents? And God bless her, Marion McQuaid is the one that worked so long to get that done, and she made it happen. It kind of reminds me of our own founder, Ethel Percy Andrus, who was so tenacious to make sure that AARP got started. But the thing that's so cool about this is that it's always the first Sunday after Labor Day. So be sure that you're aware of that, and be sure not to forget your grandparents, but also looking other moments of history. Nanny, is there anything you wanted to share on that?
Well, I just want to culminate the discussion, and kind of just from experience support what our experts are saying in giving, as grandparents, we really, our grandchildren are the world to us, and we really give thought and care and concern to our interactions, whether they happen organically when we're together, or if we have to plan that time, over technology. And so I'm just really appreciative of the opportunity to be in an environment to be able to discuss those types of interactions and relate to people, other grandparents out there. So I'm wondering if there are any questions that we have in the chat from any of our audience members that they may have for our experts, or even any information they would like to share about their experiences.
Beverly, As we're
Yes.
looking to see what those questions may be, we do have one last question I wanted to pose on the table, and I wanted to see what Dr. Myers and Dr. Barr think about this. And this is aside from technical issues. What are some of the emotional barriers to video chat that grandparents should think about, and how should we address them? Who would like to go first? Rachel?
Yeah, I can go first. So the thing can be finding time, right? So it can be sometimes hard because if you're in person, there's a longer period of time and so on. So one thing that has helped families is saying, okay, well, maybe we'll talk about a good time. Like the baby's gonna be awake and is kind of happy normally around 2:00, and then you call at 2:00 and the baby's had a long nap today. Just happened. So the beauty of video chat is say, let's call back in half an hour and she will be awake then and she will be ready to play. And so, having those conversations around scheduling, talking about them a little bit more, saying, what would be a good time, it can really help both grandparents and parents navigate that. And also sometimes the baby is just, as Lauren just said, the baby may not want to talk on that particular day. And that's okay too, because the thing with video chat is the baby may have changed their mind by 3:00 in the afternoon or by the next day. So you can just reconnect. So there's a lot of barriers, but their ability to reconnect and reschedule is much easier via video chat to overcome that barrier. And tech barriers we've talked about also as being an issue. But again, you can disconnect and reconnect, and talking through that tech talk, it can actually be helpful for the baby to and the young child to understand, well, how does all this tech work? And by the time they have like 5 or 6, they've pretty much worked out how to make it all work and help us solve, as adults, solve any of those tech problems as well. So I think scheduling and tech problems are probably 2 of the biggest barriers to overcome.
Good points. Thank you, Rachel. Lauren, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I will second both of those. And I will follow on also by saying, if you schedule a time and it doesn't work out or whatever, try not to take it personally, right? You're kind of getting a different look into the child's life by being able to zoom in at any point in the day. And children have mood fluctuations, and that's okay and that's normal. It doesn't necessarily mean anything about the relationship per se. And then I'll also add on to the idea to celebrate special moments in history and share cultural events. You could see this in the video that we shared a bit as well, of using video chat to share in milestones, of trying to reframe a little bit, and rather than thinking, oh, I'm missing out on seeing the first steps, or I'm missing out on, whatever the event is. Well, how can we use video and video chat to share in these milestones and share in these important events? My family, for instance, we use an app called Marco Polo. And it's not video chat per se, but it's you can send little videos back and forth. And so for the first day of school, we'll take a little 30-second video and send it to the family. And that's not even video chat, but it has that element of like, here's something happening in our day. Here it is. You can share in this even though you're not here.
Lauren, do you mind talking a little bit about the Kids Lab and share that with some folks?
Sure. So I do research with children and families. Pre-pandemic, I did research with children in the Lehigh Valley area of Pennsylvania, where I am, but we're moving to virtual studies. And so that's this pandemic study that we're talking about. We've gotten Zoom recordings from grandparents and families all over the country. And so we do research with families where we'll ask families questions. Sometimes families will send in videos that we can look at and see what families are doing and quantify and do all these fancy data analysis. And so if anybody's interested in participating in research, I know either Dr. Barr or I would love to hear from you.
That's great information. I just wanted to, we've talked a lot about the grandparent aspect of it, but can you guys discuss engaging the parents and the parental involvement is key and how that all intersects?
Yeah. I'll start. Both sides of the screen are critical, right? So, and I think you even saw in that little video when the book was being read by the grandma, the parent on the other side of the screen was saying, not this foot, it's the other foot. And she was actually helping the grandma tell the story by holding the foot and then holding the other foot, so that she was really supporting that interaction. And we've seen that a lot. So if the parent has a snack on hand, or if the parent has another book on hand, or if the parent, as Lauren just said, directs the baby or sees something off in the distance that the baby's interested in, and then you just turn the device so that the grandparent can also see it, because sometimes you can't see everything in the virtual world. And if the parent is there to support that interaction, that really helps. In our report, there's a boomers and zoomers report that we have, and we include some of that information there and some of those tips on that tip sheet there as well. And on my website as well, we have a little bit of other studies where we've shown how much parents do support learning from all types of media. And all caregivers. So if the grandparent is also with the baby during watching media as well, that's another great place where grandparents can support learning.
Yeah, and that Boomers and Zoomers link is going to be available at the end of the chat as a resource. Thank you so much. Dr. Myers, do you have anything you would like to add?
I would just say parents really can help in being flexible and following the child's interests. So the grandparent might not know when, we start up a video chat session, oh, the kid is really into, playing dolls today, for whatever reason, that's what they're interested in today. And so the parent can start initiating some of those interactions around things that the child is interested in. And parents are really such valuable resources, and we really can help our children and the grandparents on the other end get the most out of this interaction.
Well, do either of you have any suggestions for older, grandkids? Sometimes it's hard to get your children in your home to just talk to you when they're teenagers. So, how do you have any suggestions on how to help initiate interaction with the older grandchildren, teenagers? Dr. Barr? I think you're on.
This is Zoom bingo. Your mic is off. So the same 3 C's. Right. So it's again, like, what is it that the child is interested in? I live with 2 teenagers, and the grandparents are still in New Zealand. So we do face this quite a lot. And so, sports are often a great way that they have long conversations about sports. And sometimes the teenager is more knowledgeable about the topic. And so they're actually sharing the information with the grandparents. So again, what is that teenager really interested in? And often, the grandparents are, of course, these amazing sources where, as you said right at the beginning, grandparents are so excited about learning about kids, and teenagers really like that as well. They want to people to be interested in them too. So focusing in on that child's lead across the lifespan. So other people have done things like played Minecraft together. So you can join in Minecraft, and this is sort of middle school age. They'll teach the grandparents about, like, how do you mine for diamonds, etc. there's whatever it is that you can share virtually. The other thing they've done is things like sometimes have like a little dance party, so you can play music and then have different music that the child likes and that the grandparents like, and they can share that. And then the other thing that we know from a long line of research is that sharing family stories is actually really important for the development of identity in older children. So grandparents have this amazing richness of family stories. On National Geographic, I'll find the link later, and there's a way of storytelling, and you can turn it into a game. So you can tell about your story. And as I said, grandparents are a great resource for that, and that can reach older children and teenagers and be really important for their development.
Right. You're a mind reader, because I was going to say that even though teenagers, they get in that standoffish time, they're really interested in where they come from.
Yes.
And who they are, and what makes them who they are, and the history behind that. So I always find that having those discussions with my grandkids, and especially now since the pandemic, and we're not able to have family reunions where they can go in and meet other relatives. You can have that family reunion virtually and show pictures and share their history. One more quick question. Do you guys have any research on VR? Technology is always evolving, and there are these virtual reality places or meetings that you can have now. Do you have any information or back, with that that you can share with us?
So there is some. I mean, Lauren, do you want to jump in on this, or?
Oh, I was just going to add. It's funny you asked that, because one of the challenging things about studying this area is the technology moves faster than the research does.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a great question, and hopefully in a couple of years we'll have more detail. But I think Dr. Barr had something to share.
I was going to say exactly the same thing, but there are now units. So in Leeds, for example, there's a whole in England, there's a whole virtual reality centre, and they have some amazing stuff coming out. So it can be really useful for so if children have difficulty writing and so on, there can be other virtual reality that can help for social interactions. Virtual reality, it can be a really good place to practice social interactions. So I think virtual reality has a whole wide range of things that we can do. But the other thing that I've just thought of that might be interesting it's not quite virtual reality, but like museums now have done all these different virtual tours. Yeah. So you can both go on a virtual tour and talk about it and share it and so on as well. So for older children, that's another thing that you can do. And the visuals are so much better now, the 3D visuals and so on. So I think just taking anything that you're interested in, then finding out how it's done virtually that is of interest to the child, you can capture that as well. And I think we're going to find out really exciting new things about how to harness video virtual reality in the coming years as well.
It's a lot more to come.
Absolutely. And Rachel, thanks for sharing that. That's something I did with my grandkids, that I sent them and I'm not trying to promote this, but it's a little thing from the Smithsonian ahead of time, and we did it virtually together online, and it was a learning process. It was also involving the museum. Nanny and I are really big proponents of that. I have to tell you, she's been taking her grandkids and nieces and nephews to the library since they were before they could walk. And so, it's so important to make sure that enrichment is there, and we learn this. And, when we were talking about cultural language, that's very important to me, being raised on the Navajo Indian Reservation, that my grandkids understand that heritage, understand that language. And so that's something that we do as well, and we have some fun with that. But this has just been so rich. I can't tell you that we're almost out of time. And so since that's happening, we just wanted to make sure we had some closing remarks from you, Rachel, and also you, Lauren, before we close for today. Ladies, who would like to go first?
I'll go first. So I'll just emphasize, and this is not new information, it's just summary information to highlight. to follow the child's interests. Conversely, follow yourself. Share your world. Share what you are interested in. Are you really interested in gardening right now? Did something, is construction happening on your street? So follow the child and then follow your own interests as well, and share your world. And then also be flexible. Flexibility, probably the biggest thing we have all learned over the past 18 months is flexibility, right? And adaptability, and go with the flow. And I think that can make a big difference in helping us get the most out of these interactions as possible.
Dr. Barr?
Yeah, and I would say, keep on enjoying this relationship with your grandchildren. They really value and benefit from it. And any play, any discussion, any interaction with them, and whether it's virtual or in person, that is so valuable to your grandchildren.
Thank you guys so much. Please look in the chat. There are some rich links, things that can help you learn about this fabulous research, how you can get involved with this, and how you can implement some of these fantastic ideas. And so something that we just wanted to share with you, since Grandparents' Day is coming up, Nanny and I are going to be on again on Grandparents' Day, and it's a virtual couch concert with the winner from The Voice. If you guys have ever seen that show, her name is Chevelle Shepherd. She won in 2018, and she is into singing and into music because of her grandparents. And so Nanny and I got a chance to share some of our experiences with music and how important it is with our grandkids, and to build that legacy and that cultural history. And so we invite you all, if you're interested, and also if you know folks who are grandparents or relatives raising children or grandchildren, there will be some great tips and resources available for folks. And that'll be on September 12th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so if you're Central Time, it's 6:30, and then Mountain Time, it's 5:30, and then Pacific Time, it's 4:30.
And some great music, Suzanne, and great music.
And great music, absolutely. So you'll really enjoy that. So Nanny, you want to close us out?
Well, I want to thank Dr. Barr and Dr. Myers for your time again. It was such a great conversation. We appreciate the research, and we appreciate you leaving us with resources for our audience members and for grandparents in general. And I'm just appreciative of this time, and thank you very much. Suzanne?
Thank you all again, and you all be sure to just love those grandkids as much as possible, and just be sure to instill those values, and make sure that gratitude is always part of that. That's our mantra between Nanny and myself. And again, thank you all so very much. Take good care. Bye-bye. Happy Grandparents' Day.